So what I've learned in the last 2 weeks is people care about worship. They hate as many things as I do because they have expectations, and sometimes those expectations aren't made. So, today, what I hate about worship 3. Lots of people care. So we're going to visit that theme again. And at the end, I'm going to ask for some of your thoughts. So stick around. Before you click off to cat videos, I want to tell you that there's an important question at the end of today's video that will help me in the next week's video. So please answer the question by commenting below or on Facebook or LinkedIn or directly on YouTube, or you can email me at steve@revstevep.com. So, welcome to Coffee with Coach. Welcome to Coffee with Coach. My name is Steve Petty, and I have 3 goals for these videos: to help you become a better church leader, to save you time and money, and to help educate, energize, and motivate you to energize and motivate your church. So today, I want to start with something else I hate about worship, and it's the visuals. Visuals are a key thing. Most people don't think about the visuals. They just think about getting the program on the road. But they should think about visuals. After all, most of your people in church and online are watching as well as listening. So, first impressions they have of your morning worship are visual. So let's start there. Number 1, decor. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy, but visuals are huge. So, especially the chancel area. How is the decor managed? I hate a chancel that looks like a teenager's bedroom. How much clutter do we have to look at? I know. The band is playing today. Well, bands tend to think that they're playing in front of an audience and they're going to do a 1-hour set. And so they set up their amps wherever they want to go. They set up their cords. They set up their microphones. They just set up so that they can present you with the music. Sunday morning, we did not come to worship the band. There's a communion table. There's a cross. There are candles. There are flowers. We came to a worship setting. And when the band is set up in front of the worship setting, and there's amps and cables and everything all over the place, it looks like a teenager's bedroom. What are we there for? Are we there for a concert? Or are we there to worship? You can do both, but you need to think a little bit about how you set up the band. Setting it up with a ton of clutter really isn't enhancing. And it says to me, we're not really serious about this, but boy, have we got a great band. Cool, but that may not be why people come. 2, chancels that don't change from year to year. I know sometimes you don't have the world's most beautiful chancel, and so you just kind of don't think about it. Maybe you change the pyramids when the seasons change, but nothing much else changes. Light the candles, set the pyramids, everything goes on just like it's always gone on. But that's kind of boring. People get tired of it. Yes, they don't have any higher expectations because they haven't been trained to have higher expectations. But you can do more things with it. Start by moving the flowers around. 1 week they're on the communion table. Another week they're in front of the pulpit. Another week they're in front of the lectern. Move something else around. Change the colors. Add something colorful. Maybe a cornucopia at Thanksgiving. Maybe balloons on Pentecost. Think about it. How can we liven up the chancel so that it's not the boring same thing from year to year? Another thing I hate, and I tell you, I've seen this all too often. Last week's flowers. You come to church, nobody bought flowers that week, so you just kind of pluck out a few of the dead ones and you leave up last week's flowers. We know they're last week's flowers. And they look really thin and skimpy, like leftover flowers, because they are leftover flowers. No flowers is better than dead flowers. Don't leave up last week's flowers. This one's particularly bad, especially once we've got to online. Choir pews that are messy. Now, back in the old days, when we had 30 people in the choir loft and they were all shoulder to shoulder and wearing choir robes, It didn't much matter what their pews were like. They could have all kinds of stuff down there. You'd never see it. Those choir robes cover up a multitude of sins. And they're shoulder to shoulder, and they're singing. Never notice. But now, choirs have dwindled. We're socially distancing. All the choir members are standing 4 to 6 feet apart. And you can see the pews underneath them. And there's Kleenex boxes, purses, throat lozenges, water bottles. It looks like a soccer mom's minivan. It's a mess. And when you shoot that shot from the balcony, or when people in the balcony are looking down on the choir, it's kind of messy. All that stuff needs to be left in the choir room or be under the pews. The pews need to be clean. Come on, step it up, people. Another one that bugs me, lights that are burned out. I realize some of those lights are hard to change. They're way, way high up in the sanctuary. But when you come in and half the lights in the sanctuary are burned out and you've got dark places here and there around the room, it says we don't care, or we're too poor to change light bulbs, or we don't know how to change light bulbs. I'm not sure what it says, but it doesn't say anything good. Change the light bulbs, and when you have to change 2 or 3 light bulbs, change them all. That way, they'll all be good for another year or two. Another thing that really bugs me, music leaders that look bored. I don't care if they're choir members, band members, choir director, organist. When they look like, oh, this is my gig, but I just played my thing, so now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be bored. When the people in the chancel look bored, what are the people in the pews supposed to think? I can't tell you how bad it looks to have a guy in the tenor section doing crossword puzzles during the sermon. I realize he just came because he loves to sing tenor. But do you have to do crossword puzzles with your legs crossed so that everybody can see you're doing crossword puzzles in the middle of the sermon? No, you don't. And you shouldn't. And somebody should speak to that guy and say, hey, that's not appropriate. Act like you're paying attention. It's only 20 minutes. You can act like you're paying attention. Band people that are really, really bored, and as soon as their gig is done, they leave the room. They wait. Somebody goes out and gets them and says, well, it's about time you come back in. We all know that they just disappeared. What does that say? Are we paying them for only the 20 minutes that they play? Or are we paying them for the whole time? If we're paying them for the entire hour, I expect them to sit in the sanctuary and pay attention to the sermon. They just might learn something. But what does that say to the whole congregation if they leave? If choir members leave in the middle, oh, they've sung their anthem, they get up and they walk out. What's the message there? Well, I really don't care what the preacher has to say. I'm leaving now. I've done my thing. Music leaders that look bored and act bored and really disrespect the whole service bugs the heck out of me. Come on, people. Pay attention. You're here for a reason, to worship God, not to perform. That's secondary. And lastly, kind of like unto it, a pastor who does not look happy to be there. I had a pastor once who got an appointment and he didn't want to be at that church. I think in the next 4 or 5 years, he told the congregation 3 or 4 times a year he really didn't want to be appointed at that church. Well, what does that tell you? That's kind of like saying, I really don't want to be a part of your family. Sorry, I'd rather be anywhere else. What does that say? Or a pastor who's really trying to do their best, but they're just kind of overwhelmed by life and they're terrified to be in the worship service. And so they look bored because they're actually terrified. What does that say to the congregation? Pastors, if you want your congregation to be happy, look happy. Look like you're enjoying this. You wouldn't rather be anyplace else in the world but here in this sanctuary with these people on Sunday morning, praying and preaching and enjoying worship. This is where you want to be. You should exude excitement about being in worship and leading worship. And that way your congregation will return that excitement to you because they're excited to hear what you've got to say that you're so excited about. If you look bored, or you look terrified, or you look like you really have to get home and watch the Bears game, what message does that send to the people in the pews? It doesn't send a good message, and it's not going to help you. And it's one of those things I really hate about worship. Now, the question of the week. I really would like your help on this, so please write a comment, let me know. And the question is, for you lay people out there and you clergy, what do you expect to get out of attending worship? What do you expect to get out of attending worship on Sunday mornings? Don't even think too much about it. Just write it down. Give me your first impression. Click down there on comment and give me your first impressions right now. I don't care if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or if you're on YouTube, send me those. And if you can't send a comment, send me an email at steve@revstevep.com. I want to hear why you go to worship. What do you expect to hear? Well, that's it for this week. We may be on this subject again next week because I'm going to tell everybody what you shared. Believe me, I won't use your names, but I'm going to share next week what the pastor needs to deliver on Coffee with Coach.